Adagio, Adagietto, Agitato, Agitato Sordino, Agitato Arpeggio, Anthology. I'm here to give you a clear and concise comparison as well as logical advice regarding the value and application of these sample libraries. We'll also discuss just what can be found in Anthology that differs from Adagio. The driving force behind this collection and its strongest selling point comes down to one thing: emotion. There are many string libraries on the market, but one thing that gives this library collection its unique charm is the way that the players performed during the recordings. There's a kind of chaos and imperfection to it all that becomes extremely useful when composing soft, emotive, and intimate passages. This makes the library an attractive buy for most composers. But the fractal way the library as a whole is marketed can confuse. Let's have a listen to just Adagio. These are the core sounds of the series and contain the primary emotions desirable for cinematic string compositions. Now let's have a listen to Agitato Grandiose Legato. This is a much simpler package that focuses on soaring lines and passionate vibrato, sporting only long notes and legato. The transitions are also much more agile and smooth. Now for Agitato Sordino. As you can hear, these sounds sport the same soaring tone but with muted strings, and benefit from the advantage of having identical legato sustains, spiccatos and dynamic arc longs for all of the sections: violins, violas, cello and basses. Agitato Arpeggio is an impressive sounding collection of extremely fast legato and marcato samples, although unless you often compose hectic, high-speed passages, you may find the novelty wearing off before long. These are the 4 collections recorded for the Adagio series of strings. Adagietto is a watered-down, more affordable package containing just the main elements of Adagio. But there's one more: Anthology. Anthology was introduced as a reimagining of Adagio, Agitato, and Agitato Sordino. An essential set of shorts and legatos were selected for the ensemble, divisi, and solo sections to provide a more balanced and symmetrical design. And the separate articulation patches from the original libraries were arranged as articulations available in a single patch. This certainly makes Anthology an easier library to work with. But what about the sound? For the ensemble patch, the tapped and feathered spiccato as well as staccato and other long articulations were kept. We get feathered spiccato for divisi and regular shorts for soloists. These samples have been slightly tweaked, tuned and tightened for Anthology, but the main tweak is with the stereo image. The original Adagio series and Agitato series libraries contained wide stereo recordings that often leaned towards the right side of the stereo field due to individual string players' intensities and movement. Anthology attempts to counteract this by narrowing the stereo field of the samples. This certainly makes it a bit more controlled sounding, however you may feel that some of the natural air gets kind of sucked out in the process. This is especially true for the legato articulations. You'll notice Anthology has two legato types for ensemble and divisi. The first legato is derived from the Agitato libraries. Here's the comparison. Same samples, but Anthology has a narrower sound. Legato 2 is derived from the instinct legato in Adagio. Here's the comparison. Once again, the same but narrower for Anthology. You get the picture. Anthology also contains the Sordino legato and shorts from Agitato Sordino, but again narrower. I want to help you make a practical and rewarding decision regarding these libraries. So what I'll do is I'll give you a guideline based on what you plan to use the library for. Here I'll point out the positives and negatives of owning any one particular collection. Adagietto. If you don't plan on spending much on a string library, but you want some of that emotional quality offered by Adagio, hands down this is the library for you. Do note though that its strength lies in the legato and dynamic bowings. The shorts are a little quaint and don't always fit epic scoring or general classical use. Adagio. If you want all the expressions and unique legato styles, this library sports a variety of legato sustains, ensemble, divisi and solo sections, and many different unique arts. The problem though is consistency. Trying to match certain dynamic bowings or repeated notes for each section becomes a mess at times, and there are some perceived bumps in some of the legato transitions, particularly the violins. Agitato. If you're after just the soaring legato and molto vibrato, this offers it for ensemble and divisi violins, violas and celli, but not the basses. Agitato Sordino. If you prefer muted strings, this is a well-balanced package, although I will say it lacks the emotional quality found in the previous Agitato package. It contains violins, violas, celli and basses. Agitato Arpeggio. If you want high-speed violins, violas and celli in ensemble, you'll benefit from this package. But do remember, it is a one-trick pony. There's only so many uses for this one. Anthology. If you prefer a more controlled set of strings with a nice selection of articulations for ensemble, divisi and solo sections, and you like to work quickly, this is what I'd call the workhorse of the series. However, the emotion of the long-form legato arcs available in the original Adagio is replaced with infinite sustains, which does suck a lot of the unique element of Adagio out. The narrower stereo field and drier samples can also detract from the natural air of the recordings. Also, the legato crossfade for the solo instruments is not so good. Okay, so now we know what's what. But there's still one problem. Too much variety. Look, let's face it. With century strings on the menu, you're going to be asking yourself, should I even buy Anthology? My fast answer to that would be, well, no. Save your money for the more superior Century library and buy that instead. Anthology presents Adagio in a more controlled and traditional format, but Century Strings will be a much more comprehensive and useful library with that approach. So what now? You're probably asking, why does Corey own Anthology and Adagio anyway? Well, that's because I'm a sucker for string libraries. But I'm here to help you avoid buying up everything out of confusion or buying something you might not feel so hot about later. So here's my advice. Adagio is unique. If you're planning on buying century strings, great. But if you want the best of that intimate and imperfect sound from Adagio, consider this approach. Pick up just Adagio violas and cellos. Those two contain the most useful content of the core Adagio series. In my opinion, the Adagio violins are a little too bright for intimate emotional scoring, and their short notes aren't as good as the violas. The viola and cello packages contain the most characteristic short notes and a beautiful soft legato. I'd double the violas to play two parts, same as the cello. Next, pick up a copy of Agitato Grandiose violins for that lush, soaring legato to add flavour to the other two libraries. And leave it at that. When it comes to traditional and classical scoring, these emotive strings aren't going to fit the rigid mould that style asks for. These are special strings for unique and expressive characteristic scoring, and they benefit from being used that way. You don't really need the basses, and the violas and celli have a soft sordino that can't be recreated using Agitato sordino. With these three libraries, I arranged a small collection of patches that are perfect for dark and intimate scoring. Have a listen. That's what these three libraries can do when brought together. I think it's the most balanced and simple combination, and it works. But where's the solo strings? I'm not too hot on the legato crossfades on the solo instruments in Adagio, so I use their regular sustains. What does work perfectly with this section, though, is macabre solo strings by Strezov sampling. And guess what? That's what my next library spotlight will showcase. Check you later.